Have you ever wondered why some films from decades ago still feel fresh today, while others become painfully outdated? The 1960s was a golden era for science fiction cinema that somehow predicted our current reality with uncanny accuracy. While many dismissed these films as mere fantasy at the time, these visionary works tackled issues we're still grappling with, from artificial intelligence to global health crises and surveillance states. These weren't just movies, they were warnings, prophecies, and reflections that seem more relevant with each passing year. In 1968, Stanley Kubrick forever changed cinema with 2001: A Space Odyssey. This groundbreaking film defied conventional storytelling, abandoning traditional narrative structure for a visual symphony that explored humanity's past, present, and future. What's remarkable is how its special effects still hold up against modern CGI. Kubrick's practical effects and innovative camera techniques created space sequences so realistic that skeptics later claimed he helped stage the moon landing footage. The film's AI character, HAL-9000, predicted our modern anxieties about artificial intelligence gone awry decades before Alexa and Siri entered our homes. Its themes of evolution, technology, and transcendence continue to inspire filmmakers and philosophers alike, with even Christopher Nolan citing it as a major influence on Interstellar. But not all 1960s sci-fi relied on spectacular effects. Jean-Luc Godard's Alphaville, 1965, created a dystopian future without a single special effect. This French New Wave noir masterpiece used contemporary Paris to depict a world ruled by a tyrannical AI called Alpha 60. Shot entirely on location with existing architecture and technology, Godard proved that science fiction is more about ideas than spectacle. The film explores a society where emotions are outlawed and logical thinking is the only accepted form of consciousness, a premise that eerily reflects our modern concerns about algorithm-driven decision-making. Its stark black and white cinematography and expressionist lighting create a future that feels both retro and timeless, showcasing how creative vision can triumph over budget limitations. The film's warnings about technological control and surveillance have only grown more relevant in our era of data mining and digital monitoring. The iconic twist ending of Planet of the Apes, 1968, has been referenced and parodied countless times, but what's often overlooked is the film's biting social commentary. Released during the height of the civil rights movement, the film used the sci-fi premise of evolved apes ruling over humans as a thinly veiled metaphor for social inequality. Charlton Heston's performance as astronaut Taylor captured the disbelief of finding yourself suddenly at the bottom of a social hierarchy. The film's makeup effects by John Chambers were so revolutionary they earned a special Academy Award. Beyond its famous ending, the film's exploration of religious dogma versus scientific progress feels eerily relevant in today's polarized political climate. Its sequels might have declined in quality, but the original stands as a masterclass in using genre fiction to examine social issues while delivering thrilling entertainment. François Truffaut's adaptation of Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451, 1966, depicted a world where books are destroyed and critical thinking is suppressed, a concept that's gained new relevance in our era of information bubbles and disputed facts. The film's portrayal of wall-sized interactive televisions predicted our current attachment to screens with unsettling accuracy. Julie Christie's dual role as both the protagonist's wife and his revolutionary love interest showcased how media could simultaneously pacify and awaken society. The film's visual design, with its modified 1960s aesthetic, created a future that feels both vintage and timeless. Bradbury's warnings about a society choosing entertainment over knowledge hit differently in an age where attention spans continue to shrink. The irony that people now often experience this story through film rather than Bradbury's novel would not be lost on the author, who feared visual media would replace written word. George Pal's adaptation of H.G. Wells' The Time Machine, 1960, brought Victorian sci-fi into the atomic age with its depiction of a traveler witnessing humanity's far future evolution. The film's Oscar-winning special effects, particularly the time-lapse sequences showing the accelerated passage of time, were groundbreaking for the era and still inspire wonder. But beyond the visual spectacle, the film's exploration of class division with humanity evolved into the leisure class Eloi and the industrial worker Morlocks, reflected Cold War fears while still resonating with our modern concerns about growing inequality. Its production design brilliantly contrasted Victorian steampunk aesthetics with a distant future that's both pastoral and unsettling. The film's message about the potential concerning outcomes of unchecked social stratification seems increasingly prophetic as wealth gaps continue to widen globally. La Jetée, 1962, might be the most influential 28 minutes in sci-fi history. This French experimental film told its post-apocalyptic time travel story almost entirely through still black and white photographs, creating a compelling atmosphere that directors still reference today. Its narrative of a man sent back in time who discovers he witnessed a significant moment from his childhood inspired Terry Gilliam's 12 Monkeys and countless other time paradox stories. Director Chris Marker's revolutionary approach proved that storytelling innovation could triumph over technical limitations. The film's meditation on memory, time, and destiny reaches almost Hitchcockian levels of suspense despite its minimalist approach. Its exploration of how past, present, and future can collapse into one another continues to influence not just science fiction, but art cinema worldwide. The singular moment where the still photographs briefly transform into moving footage remains one of cinema's most powerful transitions. Journey to the Far Side of the Sun, 1969, presented the mind-bending concept of a mirror Earth existing on the opposite side of the sun long before the multiverse became a sci-fi staple. This British production featured impressive model work and retro-futuristic design elements that give it a distinctive visual identity that's aged into cool retro-futurism rather than dated camp. The film's premise of astronauts discovering their mirror selves raises philosophical questions about identity that feel modern despite the vintage special effects. Its exploration of Cold War paranoia through the lens of space exploration captured the political tensions of its era while speaking to universal themes of discovery and existential crisis. While not as well known as other entries on this list, its cult following has grown as audiences appreciate its ambitious concepts and striking visuals that did much with limited resources. Before she became a political activist, Jane Fonda starred in the psychedelic space adventure Barbarella, 1968, a film whose creative approach and stylized aesthetic has become increasingly appreciated as both a time capsule and ahead-of-its-time feminist text. Initially dismissed by critics as excessive, modern viewers recognize how the film subverted gender expectations by featuring an empowered female protagonist who saves the universe. The film's outrageous costume design by Jacques Fontaret and Paco Rabanne created a space fashion aesthetic that continues to influence designers today. Its playful approach to relationships and gender feels surprisingly progressive compared to many of its contemporaries. Director Roger Vadim created a unique visual style that embraced both futuristic elements and 1960s counterculture aesthetics. While certainly a product of its time, Barbarella has aged into something that feels boldly experimental rather than simply dated. Robinson Crusoe on Mars, 1964, took Daniel Defoe's classic castaway tale and transplanted it to the Red Planet, creating a surprisingly scientifically accurate, for its time, survival story decades before The Martian. The film's creative solutions for how an astronaut might survive on Mars, finding oxygen in rocks, creating water from ice caps, were based on the best scientific knowledge available. Its realistic approach to depicting the Martian landscape used Death Valley locations to great effect, creating a believable alien world without elaborate sets. Actor Paul Manty delivered a compelling one-man show for much of the film's runtime, portraying the psychological effects of isolation with surprising nuance. The addition of an escaped alien companion, played by Victor Lundin, allowed the film to comment on social relations and colonialism while providing a companion for the stranded astronaut. The film's practical approach to space survival continues to resonate in our renewed era of Mars exploration enthusiasm. Ray Harryhausen's stop-motion mastery reached new heights in First Men in the Moon, 1964, adapting another H.G. Wells story with groundbreaking special effects. Harryhausen's meticulous animation of the insect-like selenites created moon creatures that still charm viewers despite their obviously handcrafted nature. The film cleverly framed its Victorian-era story within a modern, 1960s space mission, connecting the space race audience to Wells's 19th century imagination. Its retro-futuristic design for the Kubrick spacecraft married Victorian aesthetics with space travel in ways that predicted the later steampunk movement. Beyond the technical achievements, the film explored themes of imperialism and first contact that maintain their relevance. The contrast between the curious scientist Cavour and the entrepreneurial Bedford represented opposing views of exploration, for knowledge versus exploitation, that still define our approach to space. Fantastic Voyage literally went where no film had gone before, inside the human body. This innovative adventure about scientists miniaturized and injected into a diplomat's bloodstream won Oscars for its visual effects and art direction. Its creative depiction of human biology as an alien landscape influenced everything from educational films to theme park rides. While Raquel Welch in a form-fitting wetsuit got attention, the film's real star was its groundbreaking visualization of human anatomy through practical effects and innovative set design. The film's premise has been referenced and parodied countless times, most famously in a Magic School Bus episode and Rick and Morty, showing its cultural staying power. The concept of nanotechnology for medical treatment, using tiny machines to heal the body from within, has moved from science fiction toward reality in recent decades. The film's balance of educational content with thrilling adventure created a template for sci-fi that enlightens while it entertains. Though technically released in 1971, the Andromeda strain began production in 1969, based on Michael Crichton's novel published that same year, making its roots firmly in the 60s. This clinical thriller about scientists racing to understand an extraterrestrial microorganism feels remarkably relevant in our modern world. The film's documentary-like approach, with its split screens and clinical presentation, created a new template for realistic sci-fi that prioritized scientific procedure over spectacle. Its depiction of contamination protocols and high-tech facilities set a standard for portraying scientific research that influenced films for decades. Director Robert Wise created unbearable tension from microscope slides and computer readouts, proving that science itself could be as thrilling as any alien monster. The film's warning about how unprepared we might be for extraterrestrial contamination remains thought-provoking in our contemporary world, where global challenges have become increasingly complex. Village of the Damned introduced one of science fiction's most enduring images: emotionless blonde children with glowing eyes who can influence minds. This British production created maximum tension on a minimal budget through atmosphere and suggestion, rather than explicit effects. The film's exploration of otherness and concern about children spoke to post-war anxieties about the next generation, while creating a template for unusual child stories that's still being recycled. The children's unified consciousness and coldly logical approach to human domination predicted concerns about hive minds and artificial intelligence. George Sanders delivered a nuanced performance as a scientist trying to understand and ultimately outsmart the children, including his own son. The film's quiet English village setting created an effective contrast with its invasion narrative, showing how the alien and everyday could collide. Its influence extends far beyond its modest production, inspiring everything from The Midwich Cuckoos to Children of the Corn. Quatermass and The Pit combined archaeology with alien invasion in ways that predicted the later Ancient Aliens phenomenon. This Hammer Films production, released as 5 Million Years to Earth in the US, proposed that Martians had influenced human evolution and implanted psychic abilities that could be reawakened. The film's exploration of race memory and genetic manipulation feels surprisingly modern in our age of DNA testing and evolutionary psychology. Its practical effects, particularly the insectoid Martians and their biomechanical spacecraft, create a distinctive visual identity that holds up through its craftsmanship and design rather than technical sophistication. The film's linking of unusual phenomena with scientific explanation created a template for rational mystery that influenced everything from The X-Files to Prometheus. Its unnerving score and atmospheric use of London locations, particularly the underground, created a claustrophobic tension that makes the film effective even today. The Day of the Triffids took John Wyndham's novel about mobile, carnivorous plants attacking a blinded humanity and created a post-apocalyptic scenario that influenced countless later catastrophe films. While the walking plants might initially seem unusual to modern viewers, the film's depiction of societal challenges after a mass disabling event remains disturbingly plausible. The film explored how quickly civilization might face difficulties when a critical mass of the population becomes suddenly disabled. Its themes of interdependence and adaptation in crisis speak to contemporary concerns about potential catastrophes. The film's practical effects created memorable plant creatures without relying on elaborate techniques, proving again that creative design could overcome technical limitations. Its influence can be seen in everything from Night of the Living Dead to 28 Days Later, particularly in its scenes of deserted cities and determined survivors. The film's connection between ecological disaster and human vulnerability feels increasingly relevant in our climate crisis era. Seconds might be director John Frankenheimer's most thought-provoking work, a nightmarish exploration of identity and conformity that cast heartthrob Rock Hudson against type in a paranoid thriller about a man given a new face and life. The film's stark black and white cinematography by James Wong Howe, with its distorted angles and disorienting close-ups, created a visual language of alienation that still feels experimental today. Its premise of a shadowy organization offering the wealthy a chance at rebirth through facial reconstruction and staged disappearances tapped into mid-century anxieties about authenticity and the emptiness of the American dream. The film's exploration of a man who discovers that changing his exterior can't resolve his interior emptiness speaks to timeless human struggles with identity and purpose. Rock Hudson's performance, revealing the tormented soul behind his matinee idol appearance, gains additional poignancy, knowing his own struggles with his public persona. The film's clinical depiction of medical procedures and body transformation predicted later body transformation themes, while its existential questions about the nature of self remain philosophically rich. While commonly categorized as horror, George Romero's Night of the Living Dead is actually science fiction, with its reanimated individuals caused by radiation from a returning space probe rather than supernatural forces. This independently produced film revolutionized cinema with its gritty documentary-style approach and unflinching social commentary. Casting black actor Dwayne Jones as the protagonist was revolutionary for its time, and the film's unexpected ending gained additional resonance against the backdrop of civil rights struggles. Its depiction of how quickly social order faces challenges under pressure continues to influence apocalyptic fiction. Romero's use of news broadcasts to provide exposition created a sense of realism that made the fantastic elements more impactful. The film's exploration of how humans might face difficulties together in crisis often proves more concerning than the external threat itself. Its legacy extends far beyond horror, influencing filmmakers in every genre with its independent spirit and willingness to use genre fiction to address societal issues. The Day the Earth Caught Fire presented an ecological disaster scenario that feels disturbingly plausible in our climate crisis era. This British production proposed that simultaneous nuclear tests by superpowers knocked Earth from its orbit, sending it spiraling toward the sun. The film's documentary approach, featuring journalists investigating the crisis, created a realistic framework for its speculative premise. Its striking visual technique of tinting sequences yellow and red to show the increasing heat created a distinctive look that still impresses. The film's focus on how ordinary people and institutions would respond to impending disaster explored human nature under extreme pressure. Its unflinching look at how governments might withhold information about catastrophes to prevent widespread concern seems all too believable today. The film's ambiguous ending, with newspapers prepared with either "World Saved" or "World Doomed" headlines, left viewers with a haunting uncertainty that reflected Cold War anxieties while speaking to our contemporary climate concerns. Women of the Prehistoric Planet admittedly hasn't aged well in the conventional sense. Its low budget, questionable science, and dated gender portrayals are obvious. Yet, this imaginative space adventure has transcended its limitations to become a beloved cult classic that represents the enthusiastic side of 1960s sci-fi. Later celebrated on Mystery Science Theater 3000, the film has found new appreciation for its audacious imagination despite limited resources. Its multicultural cast was progressive for its time, even if the representations wouldn't meet modern standards. The film's unique premise of space explorers encountering humanoid aliens who evolved to look exactly like humans in just a few generations exemplifies the delightful pseudoscience of the era. Its colorful costumes and set designs have aged into the kind of retro aesthetic that's now deliberately imitated by filmmakers seeking a vintage sci-fi look. The film reminds us that sometimes art transcends its original purpose, finding value not despite, but because of its limitations and creative choices. These 19 films from the 1960s didn't just predict technologies and social issues, they shaped how we imagine our future and process our present. Their influence extends beyond cinema into technology, fashion, architecture, and philosophy. When we worry about AI overreach, we're channeling HAL 9000. When we debate the ethics of genetic manipulation, we're wrestling with questions raised by Quatermass. When we design space habitats, we're often unconsciously referencing the visual language these pioneering films established. What makes these films endure isn't just their innovative effects or predictive concepts, but their fundamental understanding of human nature. They recognize that while technologies change, human desires, concerns, and conflicts remain consistent. The best science fiction has always been less about predicting specific inventions and more about exploring how humanity might respond to changing circumstances and capabilities. These films continue to resonate because they asked questions that remain unresolved and presented scenarios that still provoke thought. In an era when some modern blockbusters feel dated within months of release, these visionary works from 6 decades ago continue to inspire filmmakers, scientists, and dreamers. They remind us that true innovation isn't about budget or technical specifications. It's about imagination, creativity, and the courage to ask challenging questions about where humanity is heading. Perhaps that's the most surprising thing about these aged films. They're still showing us the future.